Welcome back as we continue our series of Practical Guide to Islamic Laws of Inheritance. Welcome back. Now in this lesson, we're going to look at some of the algorithms that are organized in forms of 3 tables in your booklet. So I really encourage you to open your booklet right now and go to table 1. Let's talk about it first, and then we'll look at table 2 and table 3 as well. Now table 1 basically consists the list of Zivil Furuz. Do you remember what that was? Zivil Furuz were the relatives about whom there's a certain specific fraction that is mentioned in the Quran or the Hadith, but in a certain scenario. If the scenario meets, then they get that fraction. That's Zivil Furuz. So that's the list of Zivil Furuz. That's the first step that we look at among the relatives and see if these scenarios are meeting, then how much share we need to assign them. So this table is organized in different columns and rows. This column says heir, H-E-I-R, which gives you the abbreviation of each relative, like H is for husband, W is for wife, D for daughter, and so on. And you can look at the table of abbreviations to figure out what we're talking about. The next column is the share. This is the actual fraction that is mentioned. So it's 1/2, 1/4, 1/4, 1/8, whichever fraction we're going to use. The next column is share out of 24. We talked about if you're not good with LCMs or you're struggling and you want to make it easy, then don't worry about the first column, rather just use 24 as the denominator so that everything becomes easy for you to calculate here on. Then is the condition, which means that in what circumstance they are getting that share and what requirements have to be met so the share could be assigned to them. And after that is references. So this will take you to the later part in the booklet where you can see some references and see how did we come up with these rules. Now let's look at the rows in this table. These rows are the relatives relative to the deceased person. So when I say husband, which means the person who died, we're talking about their husband. When I say wife, it's the person who died, their wife. So it's everything is in relationship to the dying person. So all relationships are considered using the dying person, the dead person. And from there we are seeing who are the relatives that are alive. The other important thing to know is that the relatives should be present at the time of the death of that person. So these are relatives who were alive when the person died. Now, maybe you were calculating your inheritance many years afterwards or a few months afterwards. And what if some of the other relatives have died during this time? But when you're doing the calculations, you have to go back in time and see at the time of the death of that person who was alive, and then look at this table. The first row is about husband, which gives us 2 scenarios. Scenario 1 is share of 1/2, 1 out of 2, with the condition that there are no children, which means the dying person had no awlad. Do you remember the definition of awlad now? What was it? 6 relatives. The dying person does not have a son, a daughter, son's son, son's daughter, son's son's son, or son's son's daughter. If these 6 of these are not present, then in that scenario, husband will get 1/2. If any of these are present, then awlad are present and husband will get 1/4. Similarly for the wife, we see if awlad of the dying person, which was the male, if that person did not have any awlad, then the wife gets 1/4. If there was awlad, then the wife gets 1/8. Next we move on to daughter. The scenarios over here in which daughter gets a fixed ratio are only 2. So look up the condition now. If there are 2 or more daughters, then the daughters will get 2/3. All the daughters combined will get 2/3 if the son is not present. So 2 conditions. There are 2 more daughters and there is no son. If there is a son present, then the daughters will not get a fixed ratio. They will get 2:1, and that will come in the next table. The other scenario is if there is no son and it's only 1 daughter, then that daughter will get 1/2. I hope you learned from this video and you were able to understand these concepts very well. The more you practice, the better you get. Let's continue to the next lesson.